Okay, so now let's go ahead and start the webinar. Well, hello. I'm really excited tonight. Jim Morgan with Caring Transitions, and we have Life's Co-Pilot, where we try to bring in new resources for people, for seniors, their family members, and their caregivers so that they can understand what's going on out there and get it straight from the source rather than from somebody's barber's uncle, that type of thing. Okay. So today I have Shawn Kim here, Shawn Rohrbach-Kim. Okay.
Got it.
And Shawn has a very interesting place in the senior care. She's working a lot with dementia and things like that, and you say Parkinson's as well. So I will let you introduce yourself, explain
Yeah.
who you are, what you do, what your company's name is, and kind of what you guys are doing.
Great. Thank you. So yes, I'm Shawn Kim. My company is called Power Over Dementia Fitness. And no, we are not working with Parkinson's, and I can talk about that in a minute. There's already people doing that work. But the short story of what I'm doing with Power Over Dementia Fitness is in-person group exercise classes for families living with dementia. And the reason that we do that is because exercise and socialization are really two of the best things that you can do for your brain. So we do that. And then ultimately, though, by bringing people together regularly through group exercise, we are creating community for families living with dementia.
So now,
So,
are you doing
yeah.
this like at people's homes? Are you doing it in senior living communities? Where are you doing this?
So my goal is to focus on people early disease. So assuming people later in the disease, if they're in memory care, that they're taken care of generally. I'm trying to get people early where there's basically a complete lack of programming for folks. And I do this right now at Heartland Church in Fishers. Um, Classes 2 times a week for these families. Really just again trying to get them out of their homes, get them doing something that they can do and that's good for them, and then figuring out what other services they might need to be successful longer. Because really, ultimately, I'm an OT by trade, I'm an occupational therapist, so I always think function. So I'm trying to keep people functioning at their highest level, both cognitively and physically, for as long as possible. And there is a whole lot that we can do from the beginning to keep people from declining so quickly.
So
So
would this be something that you would, ideally get with somebody as soon as they have a diagnosis, or what is your thought
yes,
process?
yes, that is my thought process is right now, and things are changing in the last couple of years. Things are exciting for like the first time ever, truly.
They're finding some treatments.
Right. So we have two new infusions, newish, I'll call them, for Alzheimer's type dementia, which is one form of dementia. And we also just got FDA approval for a blood biomarker test for Alzheimer's type dementia. So we can be, and the reason for that is because those treatments work best early.
Right.
If somebody has more advanced disease, then they're not a candidate. So if we can start testing people early on and we can get involved early, maybe they're a candidate for the medications. But in my world, even more important, you can decide if you want to make lifestyle changes. And those have been also shown to be super protective for our brain. And there's also evidence that we can slow progression of a dementia. Nothing's going to stop dementia once it's fully kicked in. And I'm never going to say that, but
Yeah.
until they prove us otherwise. But if we can capture people early, especially those people who aren't moving and aren't with other people that aren't socializing regularly, if we can capture those people, give them a safe place to go and community, maybe we can slow the process down.
Well, I remember, when COVID had everybody locked down, there were a
Mhm.
lot of people who fell into dementia because of being alone.
Yeah.
It was because we were seeing that where, when we had one lady we were working with, we had to help her get her house, get her moved and get her
Mhm.
stuff sold. And her husband had dementia, and she used to go every day to see him at memory care and would drive there. Well,
Mhm.
COVID, she would went for like a year and never left the house.
Mhm.
And then she was in the same boat,
Yeah.
because she really had no outside,
Yeah.
so you're getting people social, getting people involved, getting people. I can see that being, because we saw more of that than what people would have guessed, probably, during that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so you saw that just kind of personal level in your interactions, but the science is there also.
Hmm.
They've researched this. Being alone is not good for our brain. And it might be as simple as if we're not talking to other people and we're not interacting with them, we're not using our brain the way it should be used. I mean, it might be as simple as that. But we know that being alone is not good for our brains. We also know that not moving is bad for our brains. The science is there,
Yeah.
so it's not just oh, we should do this and yeah, 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 yeah kind of thing. It's the science is there. But most people don't know that, truly. Like they don't know there are 14 modifiable risk factors for dementia. So there's 14 risk factors for dementia. And half of those could be remedied through an in-person group exercise class because you combine the socialization with all the positives that exercise does physically for our bodies.
Well,
So,
we had
yeah.
one of our guests that was on Life's Co-Pilot a little while back was Dr. Judy Olson. She owns the hearing centers around the
Mhm.
state,
Yeah.
and she was talking about the very distinct link between being hard of hearing and dementia. That
Yes.
because they're not getting that input,
Mhm.
then they have a tendency to slide into there.
Absolutely. So hearing loss is a risk factor for developing a dementia. So is vision loss. And I wonder if that's just as she could speak more to the science of it in terms of hearing loss. But um, if you're not getting input, and your brain doesn't have that information, that is not good. We need our brains to work. That's with exercise, a lot of it, we know that what's good for the heart is good for the brain. It might be as simple as if we don't move, we're not pumping blood to our brains. I mean, I think if there's more to it probably than that. I know there's more to it than that, but that's a pretty basic like thing I think that we can all understand.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think with most people, like I'll go to these senior fairs and just trying to tell people about what I'm doing. And I'll bring the 14 risk factors and we'll go through them one at a time, if they're interested. And I'll just, because what all of us should maybe tweak or work on is different, you know. Some of us are really strong in one area and maybe need to work on another. So, I mean,
Well,
I
I had a personal experience with it. I was one of the early adapters to COVID. Like the day that they did the shutdown for 2 weeks, that was the day I came down with it. Okay,
Oh,
so I was an early adapter,
yeah.
and I had it really, really, really bad. And one of the things that no one talked about back then, I don't know if people even didn't know about it or whatever,
Yeah.
was that what they call COVID brain. I felt like my brain was gone. It just felt like mud. I could not think. Okay, I was like hallucinating all times and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And it wasn't until afterwards when a friend of mine who happens to be a COVID research scientist started telling me things, I go, okay, I get it. Because COVID, people think of it as a respiratory. It is not. It's actually a blood disease. Your red blood cells quit carrying oxygen to your organs and to things like that. So
Mhm.
because that, I wasn't getting any oxygen to my brain, and that's
Right.
why my brain was kind of in a dementia state.
Yeah.
And it made sense to me because my father-in-law had COPD real bad and actually acted like he had dementia. He didn't. He just wasn't getting oxygen.
Right. And air pollution is one of the risk factors for dementia. And that's not really something a lot of us can control, obviously, unless we
Right.
have the money to go move somewhere without air pollution. But yeah, I mean, it's along those same lines. Like if you're not breathing in the oxygen, it's not going to get up to your
Yeah.
brain, and it'll
Right.
impact you if it gets to a certain level. So doing things that are good for blood flow, I mean, we should all do it kind of whether we like it or not. I mean, truly, like I don't exercise at this point in my life to look a certain way. I honestly do it because I want to stay strong so I can do everything that I want to do. And I also want my brain to work. So that's for me motivating. I don't know that it would work for everybody, but that's why I do it now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, before we started this, you were making a comment that a lot of what you're modeling was some of the stuff that was in the Parkinson's world, and that a local Marion County prosecutor is the one that started, Rocksteady Boxing because he was a young man that got Parkinson's and then started that to try to stay going as long as possible, with that. So you're following some of that same thought processes with yours. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, my origin story. So I'm an occupational therapist by trade, and I was working as an outpatient therapist, and I did that for a long, long time, 25 years. And then at COVID, why do we keep going back to COVID? But COVID came, and then it
They made
changed.
a lot of people made changes in that time. So yeah.
So COVID came, and then my job role changed. And I, in a way that I didn't like. And I thought, well, I'm not ready to retire. And so for fun, I went to Rocksteady Boxing, and I went to the one by Community North, not knowing that that is the international headquarters for Rocksteady, and absolutely fell in love with what they built. They are combining best practices for people living with Parkinson's, and that is exercise. I mean, the research is there for Parkinson's also. If you really want to function at your highest level, you need to move. And
Yeah.
so they've incorporated that into this beautiful program. And so people from all over the world come to this program that I just wandered in as a volunteer, like, hey, what's up? And got to see what that looked like. And I was like, this is awesome. And so then I started linking with Indiana Parkinson's Foundation that also has a program. Long story short, as I looked at what they did for people with Parkinson's, and then was like, well, what is there for dementia? I'm interested in that. I had just always been interested in dementia and couldn't believe that there was absolutely nothing for people with dementia, which is a much, much bigger problem affecting way more people. And so I thought,
Well,
well,
it didn't have curry to start it.
right. And I guess it just takes somebody, but they showed me how it could work with another disease process. And I thought, well, shoot, how could that work for dementia? So I went to my church and said, hey, this is something I want to do, and this is why. And they loved it. So for 8 months, I ran it completely for free at my church, which is Holy Spirit Geist in Indy. And so I ran that and then hit a point where I was like, okay, this is good. There's value in this. I see how to do it. We need to grow. I can't run it for free forever. I need to be able to charge if it's going to be sustainable. So yeah, then I worked my way into Heartland Church, which is also in Fishers. Um, and then I'm really honestly trying to kind of expand from there
Yeah, I
because
was gonna say, do you do it? Do you have relationships with like senior living communities, or because that would make sense to me as well, because you could get groups together, you know,
the
that
money
are
is
not
not
maybe
there.
mobile, huh?
There's a couple answers to that. In senior living communities, I feel like a lot of times the money just isn't there to do what I do because
Okay.
here's what I won't do. I have tiered exercise classes, and I do a screening on everybody that comes in so that people then can be put in the class that best matches their abilities. And the classes are different because as you progress with dementia, I can't expect them to take a dumbbell and do whatever it is I want them to do anymore. That just won't
Right.
work. And so I've designed the second class to better cater to the increased processing time and the needs of that group. So I won't go into a facility and just do one class to 20 people and hope something sticks with 5 of them. I
Okay.
used to do it. And so I do multiple classes. And now, honestly, Stillwater's Adult Day in Castleton got a grant
Uh-huh.
from the Alzheimer's Association. So now I'm there. And so I'm figuring out, how do I program to these folks? And at Stillwater's, I do 3 classes over a couple hours, because truly that's what's best. We're not
Hmm.
all meant to be put in one box, especially if we have brain change.
Right.
So that's why it kind of hasn't worked with memory care. But also, Jim, if you think about it, people by that point are really progressed. So physically as well as cognitively. And if you're in a memory care setting, maybe 15 minutes of exercise is all that's right for you cognitively and physically.
Right.
So paying somebody like me to come in and do that is not the best way. Really, what's my model is, I want to link with churches
Right.
ideally, or like I can't pay rent, and I'm just upfront about that. So I need a place that's willing to help me serve this population. So yeah, so I started at Heartland, and that program is growing. I'm now at Stillwater's
Still
programming.
Waters makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
mean, there's independent day. I mean, just daycare would be good choices too, because a lot of their clientele are dementia. Okay, and they are
Oh,
still
yeah,
living at home, but they're coming and congregating during the day.
right,
So that
right,
that's a pretty good idea.
right.
Mhm.
But the problem with adult day is that they're grossly underfunded.
Right.
So I'm at Stillwater's because they got this great grant from the Alzheimer's Association. So
That's
thank
awesome.
the Alzheimer's Association for that grant, because we're showing what we can do. But
Yeah.
most of these programs are scraping by, especially with all the Medicaid changes. And
Sure.
so like, but my calling really is for even before that. In my dream, like I'm
Trying to
step
keep them in the
one.
home longer.
Yeah, I'm step one, and then maybe we add in adult day services when you get to that point. And then eventually, you might progress to a memory care setting.
Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying? Like there's things that can be done along the way, so that that partnership at home, the care partner with the person living with dementia, are successful longer. And the other thing I don't think mention is that our system is partner based. So I really focus it for both a person living with brain change and their care partner. And so that could mean husband, wife, child. It could mean paid caregiver.
Hmm.
But there's such value in getting the caregivers in there exercising with us for their own bodies, but also just to be with other people on a regular basis that are walking a similar journey. There's such value in that. And there's really nothing in our society right now that provides that, like a way that they can naturally kind of be coming together and just connecting with others, because they're walking a journey that many of us do not understand. You know, I
Hmm.
I work with people all the time that have dementia, but I am not in a caregiver's shoes.
Right.
And I can't understand
You
that
get to go
physically.
home. Yeah.
I get to go home, and I say it all the time. I have such respect for people in memory care working in those settings, because for me, I can turn it on for an hour,
Hmm.
you know, and I can hear somebody tell me a story of I've already heard. I don't, it's great. You know what I mean? But I haven't done it all day long,
Hmm.
you know? We like there's a lot that needs to change, in my opinion, in terms of how we best care for these families, but to me,
Well,
where I saw the
well,
big void was early disease. And especially if we have blood tests coming out,
yeah, because they can actually diagnose Alzheimer's while you're still alive now. That's brand new, just what, last year?
they can diagnose you pre-symptomatically.
Really? But I mean, for a while, they never could diagnose you until it was an autopsy.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
now, I mean, we've had you could do cerebral spinal
Hmm.
fluid, so things like that to look for the markers.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, now we're about to have, at least for Alzheimer's, we're about to have a test. So that's one form of dementia. There's a lot of
A,
others that,
a bunch, yeah.
yeah, there's like 200 forms of dementia. So, but, you know, like, again, if we can start figuring out how do we support these families earlier on, I haven't learned of anything where it's best to wait to the last second and try to figure it all out.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not how it works. It's better to connect early and often,
Yeah.
So that's where I'm really trying to live, even though there might be other places where it might be easier for me to try to do something similar in other settings. I feel so driven to focus early because I don't want somebody to get a positive test and then have kind of nowhere to go,
Right.
like how depressing is that?
Yeah.
You're given this diagnosis and then, okay, it's really would be good to get your affairs in order. That's terrible. I wouldn't want the diagnosis if I'm just going to be told I better get my will together,
Yeah.
you know? You don't want the diagnosis at all, but at least if you're told, as they are with Parkinson's, this is exactly what happens with Parkinson's. If you get a Parkinson's diagnosis, let's hope your neurologist is then saying, I want you to go to Rocksteady, or I want you to go talk to my friends at Indiana Parkinson's Foundation and go to their climb classes and get connected and start moving.
If you find that neurologist, you're very, very fortunate. Okay, so most of them don't really understand Parkinson's unless you have to find a Parkinson's specialist. Or there, my mom is a Parkinson's patient. It's a nightmare trying to find anybody that knows anything about it, including the doctors in the hospitals. So
Yeah, yeah. But I feel like they are further along than dementia.
they've
That's
got
what
the
I'll say to
stuff. They've
that.
got the stuff there, but getting the medical professionals to understand that stuff is
Yeah.
a challenge. Trust me.
And there's a lot, this might be off topic, but I might do it. Here's my little plug for Marion County got a grant, the Bold grant. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yes.
So building our largest dementia infrastructure, and now it's called Healthy Minds, and I'm on their coalition. And so their whole goal is figuring out like how do we best support the different actors that are involved with people with dementia. And so that's a piece that we're talking about is like, how do we get the materials to the physicians that are making these diagnoses,
Hmm.
that are making the diagnosis rather, so that they can then better connect people. Because like we're asking too much of our physicians.
Yeah.
We are, like how are they have like what, 5 minutes,
Yeah, they got
person?
average, I think, is 6 minutes. Yeah.
It's like, and so it's like, how are they gonna then also give you all your resources? They pick
Right.
one problem with you, they try to focus on that, and then they have to move on. And
Mhm.
that is the problem with our system right now.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
very cool. So tell me, how does someone, someone gets a diagnosis, okay,
Mhm.
and if they're not a member of your church, how do they even know that you're out there and how to do this other than like what, if they watch this video?
I have a website, I built it myself.
Okay.
Um, I'm basically trying to connect with people like you
Mhm.
who are working with seniors. I would say my biggest referrals are from the geriatricians.
Okay.
So I worked for community and the HATS program, they have a social worker there who regularly refers to me. The doctors there will refer. But that's also a proximity thing. Like that clinic happens to be closest to where I'm running classes, but I'm also involved with St. Vincent Center for Healthy Aging. They have a great program there as well. And that's really what I want is it's like, okay, if you're going to give somebody a diagnosis, then giving them options,
Right.
of
Give them
what you
something
could
to.
do next,
Mhm.
And so I have like, brochures in their offices, but I would look at my website, just to kind of see, and you could send a message through
And
that
your website is Power
at
Over Dementia.
poweroverdementia.com.
Yeah.
Yep. So that would be a good place to start. So you can kind of see like how we do things and send me a message through that and connect like that. But most people are usually getting my brochure either, there's some therapists also that will refer to me. And so they'll hand out my flyer, and then it's really best to call truly, because then I can learn about the unique situation that
Mhm.
every person lives in, and then figure out how do we best, um, like where might they fit best and how do we proceed with that.
Do you have scheduled classes, or is there different ones coming up at different times, or is that on your website, or?
Yeah, I mean, so yes, right now at Heartland, in Fishers, I have an 11 o'clock class and a 12:15 class. And the 11 o'clock class is really for folks that are at a higher cognitive level. Um, and the physical level kind of varies in that class, but it moves much quicker. A lot more change in that class. And then there's the 12:15 classes for people that need more time to process and just need more support. So yes, regular classes happening
You
there.
don't have to be a member of Heartland
No,
Church.
no.
Okay.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So it's
No, I
just
mean,
anyone's welcome.
yeah, they're just kind enough to,
Let you have space.
right, and to just understand like the value of bringing these families in. And so, we're starting, the consistent thing is my classes, but as part of this is I'm trying to figure out, just like Rocksteady, like they've built the model. This is how we do it. But ultimately, you want to figure out, how do I do that all over the place?
Right. Duplicate it, and yeah.
Yeah. And so, I figured out that piece of it, just the programming piece for the exercises and how do you do that part. But I would love to then start bringing in, how do we bring in the support from the church
Mhm.
to then help with all of the other needs of these families? Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Yeah, very
Because
much so.
again, we can't count on the doctors. We just can't expect them to fix all of this. I truly believe it's going to be a community-based programming.
And so where is Heartland?
Heartland is in Fishers. It's off 126th Street,
Okay.
by Hamilton Southeastern High School.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, it doesn't have to be. I wouldn't have to do this at a church.
You just
I
need a
mean,
facility that you can keep your costs to work. Yeah.
and but I do need volunteers also to help me, because
Right.
I'm not the only one in the room running these classes. It takes at least two people
Okay.
for every class. And so that's part of why I started with this model. Like, let's start in a faith-based institution. It doesn't have to be Christian. It could be any faith-based institution that has a heart for people living with dementia, truly.
So when do you start over at Stillwater?
In August. So
Okay.
they got their grant in August, and I've been there.
So you started like last month.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. We're going strong, and they, yeah, we're going strong. We're doing good. It was like, what I do is so different. I mean, the other thing I didn't say is I take blood pressures on everyone. If you're over 80 or you have a heart history, then that's a safety thing. And so they're doing that at Stillwater's for me before I even walk in the door, which I was like so impressed by, because I was trying to figure out, how am I logistically going to do this with this many people?
Yeah.
And what we do is we don't use that as oh, your blood pressure is high today, so you can't come. I mean, it has to be really quite high, but we might modify what we do.
Mhm.
And I can at least have a check-in and say, how do you feel? Are you dizzy? Are you, you know what I mean? Because we also know that exercise is good to lower blood pressure.
Right.
So I'm not trying to exclude people, but if you're living with dementia and maybe you don't feel good, you don't really understand why.
Yeah.
Maybe your blood pressure is through the roof. And so I don't want to create an unsafe situation. But anyway, so Stillwaters has come through, and like, we've worked together to figure out, how do we kind of collaborate and do this in a way that I can still provide the kind of class I feel good about. Otherwise I won't do it. I'm not doing this for the money. That's for sure. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this because I have a heart to serve people living with dementia.
Yeah.
period. And so it's like, I'm not going to compromise what I think matters to fit into somebody else's system. Is that a way to say it? And
Yeah,
so
makes sense. Yeah.
give props to Still Waters.
They're
They
doing some things that I know they're working on. They're trying to get another grant to do like a senior advocacy program and stuff, which would be phenomenal.
they are
That's
doing.
something that's so sorely needed, so.
Yes, yeah, they're really trying their best to provide good care.
Hmm.
And back to the funding thing, they have to get grants to do all of these things,
Right.
because their base money that's coming in is not enough.
Hmm.
It's not enough. And yeah, so props to them. And I'm sure this could be done in adult days all over the city. I believe that, but it maybe, I don't know, it could be a funding problem, you know.
Yeah.
That
Or
we're
they hadn't thought of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you're kind of doing a new thing. So,
I am.
yeah,
I
so.
am.
Mhm.
I am. I am. So I'm like slowly working my way into all the places. And I mean, I will tell you in the last 6 months, all of a sudden I can feel the change. I I was so naive when I started this. I thought nobody's doing this. This should be easy, because there's nothing else to do. But it's not easy. I mean, whenever you do anything new, it's not easy. Part of it
Well,
is
first of all, people don't think it's like, with Jesse, with we talked about with Memory Compass, when she
Mhm.
first started out, she was one of one in the state. There was
Yeah,
another person in Chicago doing it, and so nobody was even looking for her because no one knew what she did existed. You know,
exactly.
my friend, look in the mirror. You got the same boat there. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And it's like, and now there's other people certainly out there kind of catching on. And I kind of to prop her up, I think every family living with dementia could use a care navigator. I don't think, I know they could use it. Again, paying for it is the problem, So now we have some different programs that are starting to come out. Um, But even there's a new government funded program. Every time I learn about something, I'm like, awesome. And I try to get as many of my people involved, and it's still not happening. So imagine these caregivers. My whole life, I'm not caring for somebody with dementia, but I'm learning about it and I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out what support services are there to support my families that I see every day. And even with that, it's like I'm teeing things up for them. Here, try this. And then they go, oh, well, it's not quite in our area yet. And I'm just like, oh,
Well, it's like, when you find out, first of all, that one in three households has a caregiver that's caring for someone in that household, not necessarily dementia, but,
Right.
then you go into the dementia side of it, and then you find out that 65% of the time, the caregiver passes before the person they're caring for because they're 24/7, 365 stressed with no shutdown. And so that's why the adult days, anybody that can give them a respite, give them an opportunity to do things is critical. So.
Right, right. And that's why I feel strongly also about a partner-based system
Mhm.
where I'm at, because it's kind of twofold. I don't ideally want the care partner sitting out like it's something like this person is the patient and you're not. I don't know. First of all, I just think that's bad. I just talk a lot about team. Like we're a team. You guys are partners. You're working together. But I want them in the room because I want them to be around other people,
Right.
who are again walking that same journey. Because I've seen many times I'm checking the blood pressure of the person living with dementia, and a lot of times they're pretty advanced in their dementia, honestly, and their blood pressure's fine. And then you go to the caregiver, and it's like, I'm like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Because they're not taking care of themselves,
Yeah, and they're just stressed all the time, so.
but now they know when they come to see us, they know that we're not going to kick them out if they're high, but they know we care.
Mhm.
And they know that we're going to ask, and that they can't just completely dodge that forever, So, but I feel like just having people in the room that then you can say, hey, did you ever hear about this thing called adult day services?
Right.
Usually the answer is, what are you talking about? No, I don't know
Right.
what that is, you know? And so like just being able to tee up things
Or
like that.
respite systems. They don't know about respite. They don't know about, there's so many things they don't know, they don't know, they don't know. They don't know that they can get paid $1,200 a month or something to do the care they're already doing to help offset some of the stress that they're not making it to work all the time or they can't keep the hours. There's so many things, but they don't know.
Believe me, if I could have a social worker who comes to my classes and does that piece of it for me, because I'm trying to learn it all, but I get people coming from all over because I'm the only place.
You
So I have
know,
to know Marion County, I have to know Hamilton County. I have somebody who is coming from Marion, Indiana. Like it's a lot. And so,
I'm
yeah.
coming from a different. This is something that I don't know if it's worthwhile looking into, but it might be. I come from a real estate background. That was my world for years and years before I got into the senior services business. And I was managing, 14 offices and like 350 agents for quite some time.
Mhm,
Well, one of the things that a lot of realtors would do is, and it's a very smart thing to do, okay,
mhm.
is they would partner with mortgage reps to do open houses. So when people came in, they're talking to the realtor, but they also have this mortgage rep here that can show them how to qualify. It might be well worthwhile talking to a somebody that's in that field, somebody that is that could I'm drawing a blank. You used to use the word, but now I'm drawing a blank. But
Like a social worker,
yeah,
case
a social
manager
worker.
type. Yeah,
If you would partner with them to come to your things,
yeah.
it might be a really slick situation.
Oh, believe me, I'm trying because
Okay, because I
like I
mean,
said, like there's a social worker community. His name's Todd Wagner. I'm just going to give him props. I really, really, he has the biggest heart. He does a great job and he truly cares for these families. Um, but he is also working with them a lot of times and counseling them. So he knows. And so he can know when to recommend it.
right.
You see, because he really knows what's going on and if it's the right time or if it's going to be just one more thing that just is too much. And so trying to partner more with the social workers or the case managers that are helping support these families, absolutely. I'm trying to do that.
I'm just trying to think out loud because
Yeah.
that's something that industry does very effectively. So there
Yeah,
might
yeah,
be a way of tweaking it, and it's a win-win for everybody involved.
yeah. I'm trying. I'm
Hmm.
trying for
Okay.
sure. Because I mean, those the social workers, the case managers, they want to be able to suggest things that are going to help for
Right.
sure. Like they want to feel good about their role. And so trying to get in front of those people that are regularly doing this. One of the struggles that I have is that um, programming for people that aren't on Medicaid, there's, and that's a mess. I'm not going to get into that, but because that's all been cut significantly. But we've got this middle class, upper middle class that aren't qualifying for some of the programs that would automatically get them a case manager, for example.
Yeah. Well,
So
and that's
that's
where
where
there's
yeah,
that
where
there's some
my,
really good people there too, and that's what I'm always referring people. And I'm
yeah,
like, an elder law attorney is worth their weight in gold. Okay,
yeah, for sure.
literally, um, because people don't know. I mean, trying to get onto VA aid and attendance.
Hmm.
Very few veterans get it because it's so hard to dot the I's and cross the T's properly. Okay. My learning curve on that was trying to get my father-in-law on it. Okay. We needed it to help offset their costs for their senior living. So we
Hmm.
needed the VA in attendance. 18 months of rejection. Every time I turned it in, I get rejected, because I didn't have one I dotted right or
Right.
something. And I
Hmm.
was, and we, and the fact my father-in-law had passed, we still needed it because my mother-in-law needed it. And after 18 months, I finally got angry. Okay. And I called, my son was campaign manager for our local congressman or, U.S. congressman. So we called that office and I said, is there anything you can do? 36 hours later, we had the money. And I'm going, you shouldn't have to know a congressman to get this done. Well, that was the only way I knew at that time because it worked, right? And then
Right.
when my uncle, I needed to do it for him, same son,
Mhm.
said, I got a lodge brother that's an elder law attorney. You got to talk to him. And we didn't really know what an elder law attorney did.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so we went to him, and that just disclosure is Jeff Stinson, and because
Right.
they've been buddies. And oh my God, 2 weeks later we had the money. It was just like, because he knew how to process it, how to get it through, what questions to ask, and how to package the thing. Well, that was just completely a godsend. Well, then down the road, we ended up going and we had to put money into a trust to make it qualify. Okay. Then 5 years later, we went into the Medicaid waiver program because it was already done.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was just absolutely a godsend. But most people don't know and you don't have to wait 5 years. There's so many things, these rules, and they change every year. So you need someone that's all they do
Right.
is process that stuff.
But ultimately, you need the case manager type
Yeah. Right.
who you need an advisor. Every family needs an advisor because anybody listening to that interaction we just had that isn't in this world, like, you're like, what?
Yeah.
You need an advisor ultimately that's going to help you guide you through the process. And
Well,
that
that's one of
that
the
needs
reasons.
to be standard, I think. And
That's
that's
why Life's
common,
Copilot
not
exists.
standard.
Life's Copilot exists for this
True,
because
true.
you can go
Yeah.
on here and watch the attorneys do the Miller's Trust, and you can watch them do it in the
Right,
Irrevocable Trust. You can watch them because they'll walk through
right,
this whole process with you.
right,
They're not going to educate you to the point that you can do it because the rules may have changed since the video was done. Okay.
right,
But
right.
you now know the general concept of how to do it and who to call and, whatever. So,
And these families, though, they need that piece of it. They need somebody to help them kind of walk the legal piece and
yeah.
the kind of the medical management almost piece.
Yeah.
But then there's also, what do I call it? It's kind of what Jesse's doing. Jesse Hillock is the, yeah, it's not behavioral, but like when you're living with dementia and you have brain change, you're losing your memory, maybe it's affecting your personality. As the care partners involved in their care,
Yeah.
how do you best handle the many situations that are going to develop as a result of that? So
Well,
in a
one of the,
perfect world, you have like the person who specializes in all the legal stuff, and you go to them for that, and then you have the person who specializes in all the, well, this is how dementia impacts your brain, and this is why you're seeing this happen with your loved one, and here's some techniques for how to handle it. And you need to see those people regularly
right.
because it's gonna change,
Well, it's like,
especially the
in our family, we just dumb lucked into this. Okay. It was just absolute total dumb luck. It was before I got into the senior care business, but it was just, my mom was at a community. I'm not going to say what it is. It's been sold and rebranded two times since then. So it was a disaster while she was there. Okay, but
uh,
it's changed. Okay, but while she was there, she met a lady who was renting a space in there to do senior massage, geriatric massage, and she
mhm,
clicked with her. And it turns out this gal had a business that she did as well that she calls herself a rent-a-daughter. So what she was a geriatric care manager. She was a nurse.
yeah,
Okay. She was a
yeah,
nurse advocate.
yeah,
But worst business person I've ever known in my life. Loved her to death. She was just a sweetheart, but just was not
yeah,
good at structuring her business side of
yeah.
it. But we had her for 9 years, and she was helping take care of my mom and my uncle. It kept me where I could work, because
Mhm.
she had all the meds, she had all the doctor stuff that she just knew everything. And I was in too many hospital rooms where doctors and nurses would talk to her differently than they would to me. I'd get more information because she had that RN, and they can pretend that they do it, but it'd be a totally different conversation, and I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
so I like her sitting here, right?
Right, right.
And then she, for years, I literally would be up at night worrying if she decided to quit because, she's a terrible business person. So I knew she wasn't making a lot of money, but it was like, I kept going, when she quits, what am I going to do? My whole life is going to come
Yeah.
coming apart. but through Life's Copilot and through my, then also I've met a whole bunch of people in that space, okay,
Right.
and liked a bunch of them. And when she did, she was having some health issues herself and had to step down. We ended
Mhm.
up bringing in Mona Euler, who, I don't know if you know Mona or not, but she does that same kind of thing. She also gets into more of the money of it than because
Yeah.
she used to be a CEO of a hospital, so she knows
Oh,
that kind of stuff as well.
that'd
But
be handy.
huh?
That's handy.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's really handy. And she doesn't take any guff off anybody. So but anyway, but it's um but we what I'm saying is having that quarterback for the
Yeah.
medical side is really is priceless.
I would say most people don't have that quarterback.
They
And
don't,
that's
but
and
they don't know
that's
they exist either.
right, right. And
And it's
but
not terribly
I'll
expensive.
tell you, Jim, I've told all my people that they exist, but you know who they have? They have me,
Yeah,
which isn't as good because that's not my job, but they're not, some either aren't in a position, they can't afford it,
mhm,
because there's no other program helping them pay for this.
right.
So I hope that didn't ever come out in a judgy way, like they're not doing something they should do. But
No, it's
the
just it is
reality is a lot of
reality's
people
reality.
don't have that. And that's where I keep coming back to, at least if you have a spot where everybody is walking a similar journey, you're together on a regular basis, then that's how I feel like people make change the best.
Yeah,
So if one of my caregivers says, you know what, I've got this girl, I've got this Mona, and she's wonderful, and this is what that looks like in our life, that is, it makes it easier for the other person to transition, you know,
right.
to like, okay, maybe I'll consider something like that, and figure
Because
out if
most
I
people
can.
never heard of that particular thing. They never heard that
Right,
there's people that do that.
right,
They've never heard people
right,
do what you do. So
right,
it's
right.
like they're having to get their head wrapped around it and go, well, we never did this for my grandma or whatever. And so now it's like, but there is opportunities out
Yeah.
here.
And when you are caring for somebody who has dementia, that is all you are doing is learning. Like
Mhm.
learning, if you're going to do a good job, you're learning about, well, what is dementia and why is this happening and what can I do about it and what are the resources, and it's never ending. It's never ending. And so I wish there were more things in place right now to again help people walk that journey, but I can only do what I can do, like
Right. I
trying to
would,
start from nothing again and like kind of build, like figure out how can we use this as a tool to keep these families functioning longer and frankly happy.
yeah,
I had one of the facilities guys at the church. He's just the nicest man. His name's Joey. And he'll say, I just love how when I see them coming out, they all have smiles on their faces. And, we will have done a really hard workout, but they feel accomplished and they're
yeah.
happy. They're happy that they were there,
Mhm.
and there there's such value in that, so anyway.
Well, that's very good. Well, that's all part of the whole process here, trying to, and that's why we do what we do, to try to get your voice out there and things like that as
Thank
well. So,
Yeah, thank you. And there's so many players now that I'm in this world, folks like working with, there's people on the real estate side and the downsizing side, and
mhm,
there's all of these people that are going to know more than the regular person about what it takes to move as a senior.
yeah. And
It's
there's
like
and
special skills
I
and
had where Life's Copilot came from was I got mad, okay, because
okay.
I was the only sibling that stayed in the States, so I was caring for my in-laws, my parents, my uncle. I was POA guardian trustee for my mom and my uncle for like a dozen years, still in my mom, and I thought I knew a lot, because I'd been down these paths.
Mhm. Right.
Then I got with Caring Transitions and, started networking amongst all the senior services providers and getting to know these people and getting to know the older law attorneys and getting to know the different people of all different, the geriatric care managers, the, dementia exercise manager, whatever, all the different people.
Yeah.
And I started getting angry because I'm going, where have you been? Why didn't somebody tell me that, you know, it's like hospice. Had I had any idea how hospice really worked, not what I thought it was,
Right.
we would have been, used a lot more of that for my dad. We just didn't know. What we thought it was what 99% of people think it is. It's not that. But anyway, so we were like, so I'm like, well, how do we get this information out to people early on before they're deer in the headlight having to grab at straws and grab whatever comes by? Okay.
Mhm.
And so we were kind of in that mode of thinking. And I remember there was an article that came out. It was salacious, so it was got a lot of press. It was not from here, but it was even our local papers or had it. It was an elderly couple that committed suicide because they were overwhelmed with medical bills and things like that. And I'm going, and I posted something on social media. I go, I get why you could feel this way. I go, but we're not lacking programs. We're not lacking services. We're lacking knowledge of them and how to access them and how to use them. And I go, there's so much out there. And I put a teaser out there. I go, you don't have to be poor to get Medicaid waiver. There's things that can be done. Well, I had someone reach out to me, and was like, my mom's going through this or whatever. And I go, well, what I would do first is just go to SACOA, Central Indiana Council on Aging. And then that was back when they were running the waiver program. And I said, and just, get a hold of them. Well, the unfortunate part is it depends on who you get a hold of. They called somebody, they got probably somebody brand new that had the book in front of them and just read you can't have more than $2,000 asset, you can't have more than $2,300 of income, and that's all they told them. They didn't tell them how to use trusts, how to do all the different things to mitigate that. And so that's really where Life's Copilot came from. Well, we've got to get this information out there where people actually can access it. So we have a YouTube channel that's got all these videos on it. Your video will be on there as well. And people can go in there and learn about these different things from an expert, rather than somebody else, so that's why we're trying to do that.
Yeah, and I hope that that is still a possibility through the waiver. I don't know if
it is, yeah, because I talked to
it's
these same
harder.
attorneys and they're
Yeah.
making it happen. It's just there's more hoops to jump through, which is why you need these people to help you jump through
Yeah, yeah.
them.
Because like I said, I feel like every one of these families, they need support,
Yeah,
they just,
trying to do it on your own, good luck.
yeah, it's rarely good, you
Mhm.
know, but being able to link with the people, to your point, that can help guide you on that journey
Yeah,
is there's such value in that, you know,
right.
again, both financially and then handling
Peace of
all
mind, and
the
yeah, the whole bit.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So,
Well, I enjoyed this. This was great. Thank you very much. I'll send you a copy of this to use as you please, and then it will be on Facebook Live for a month. Now, it used to be on there forever, but Facebook now gets rid of all the live videos in a month, which is
yeah.
annoying. But then I'll put it on as a YouTube. So there we go from there.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
all right.
Well,
Thank you so much for sharing.
thank you so much.
All righty. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.